Like a job interview, right? Like everyone's on their best behavior and everyone's gonna tell you that they're the hardest worker in the world on the interview. And really that kind of first appointment, that's kind of your interview, right? And where you really shine is how I respond when there's a major issue.
Right.
Yeah.
So just make sure that you're responding in a positive way and that you always have a positive attitude. And again, I've been on the receiving end. We've been on the receiving end where we get phone calls like that, but you've got to keep in mind, you've got to have that high EQ, right? And just act in a manner to where once this blows over, they still want to continue to do business with you and they're still going to continue to refer business to you.
Yeah, let's talk real quick about like kind of the philosophy of the customer is always right. And just kind of my thought that I have there is there's got to be a balance though, right? So if the customer is always right, they are until they're not, right?
Yeah.
So like, hey everybody, welcome back to Medicare Agent IQ. I am Raul Gonzalez.
And I'm Oscar Ibieta.
And so today what we're going to be talking about is responding to customer complaints. I think that, man, it feels to me like that's something that naturally, like I felt like pretty good about. But then when I watch YouTube videos and of people responding, I'm like, oh, you probably could have done that a little bit better. So I figured we could spend some time going through that and just kind of, everybody has their own style, but I think that the one of the most important things is kind of remembering, this is probably 100 years old, the customer is always right. Do you agree with that?
I would. There may be some instances where it may not necessarily be the case, but for the most part, yeah, if you're operating on that model, I think that, I guess another thought that comes to mind when we're talking about trying to resolve complaints and get through complaints is one thing that I've learned to do is always put myself in their shoes and think about how they're feeling and what they're thinking and where these frustrations may be coming from, because sometimes those complaints, usually they're emotional and they've got some frustrations and they can tend to take them out on us, but we need to make sure that as agents that we're not taking it personally and we're going to do what we can to try and help them get through the situation.
Yeah, let's talk real quick about like kind of the philosophy of the customer is always right, and just kind of my thought that I have there is there's got to be a balance though, right? So if the customer is always right, they are until they're not, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell our employees is like, look, it's not okay to be abused, right? Like if people are going to start like cussing at you and start kind of being ugly with you, like that could be a line where like, you know what? Like I'm not going to have you talk to me in that way. But in general, I would say like, let's focus on how to like if a customer has an issue, it's like, how do we resolve this for you? I think that there's a lot, and think maybe let's talk about what our first response would be is to listen and try to understand. And so we've had people, they'll call in, and I've seen it where, and to be honest, I've even been on the other side of it where I'm kind of frustrated with certain things, and I'll call a company, and there was a time not too long ago I ordered Christmas wreaths. I said it right. Okay, ordered some Christmas wreaths, and they sent them out immediately, but they didn't send the door hangers. They were on back order for 6 weeks, but they sent it all out. And I was like, well, I called the company and I explained, I was like, look, I appreciate the wreaths, but if I ordered the hanger and they're not going to be here for 6 weeks, then that's not going to help me. And he was like, okay. I was like, that's crickets. And I was like, well, but what I'm looking for is for you to help me with this situation. I was like, and he was like, okay. I was like, what about, and so I'm having to walk him through this instead of him doing the opposite. So I was like, well, why don't you, the other thing, I paid for overnighting. And so I'm like,
it feels like it makes it worse.
Right, yeah, like I paid for it to be overnighted, and so I appreciate you guys getting the wreaths, but like 6 week back order for the hanger, I was like, you know what, I would prefer that you go ahead and credit me. And he was like, okay. So like the whole time, like just didn't care about it whatsoever. And I'll tell you, like, do you think that I'm probably going to go back to that company?
Likely not.
Not going to happen. I wouldn't. And so just kind of keep that in mind when you're dealing with this. I think you need to listen, find out, like, you know, what upset them. You know?
Yeah, and I think if we kind of convert that to the language that we're speaking here, if you're on the receiving end of a complaint, we shouldn't respond the way that person responded to you. Instead, we've got to come up with, we have to have the ability to listen to them and really just, what I've learned to do is kind of just repeat what they're telling me. So after they've come to me with a complaint, I say, okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, this is the situation and this is where we are. And that's, honestly, I mean, even when you made that phone call to that company, right, it probably would have made you feel a lot better rather if instead of that person just saying, okay, I don't know what you'd like me to do about it. Then you had to take the time to coach them through on finding a solution instead.
For their company, yeah.
For their company. And so us as agents, that's our job. That's our duty, is to help them find a solution. Or how are we going to help you get through this? What's the first step in getting this issue resolved? And there may be times where we can, in fact, resolve whatever complaint that they're coming to the table with. And there might be other times where we can't, but we don't. And if it's a situation where we can't, we probably don't want to lead with that. We don't want to say, well, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. You've got to call customer service. Like, that's probably, at some point, you'll probably have to, you know, work that into the conversation, but I don't know that I'd immediately respond with that.
Yeah, I think let's go back. Like, that first response has to just be listening. And how do you do that? Like, literally, okay, I'm all ears. Like, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to listen to everything that you have to say. I'm going to respond back and kind of repeat and maybe even affirm you and your frustration, right? So, man, I can completely understand why you're so frustrated with this. You know, that you know, to be real honest, like, I can see how you feel. Like, I understand that you did not want such and such to happen. Let me figure out how we can help you. So I've communicated two things with that. One, that I'm listening, right? By repeating it back to them, I've communicated that I'm listening to what they're saying. And two, I've communicated right at the beginning that I'm gonna figure out how I can resolve this issue with them. And so one thing that we've got to do is, like you said, kind of diagnose the problem, like figure out, okay, what can we do to figure out how to resolve this problem? Because I want to be the person that has a response for them, that will figure it out for them. And I don't want it to be a situation where I am just kind of like, okay, like figure out, like, what can we do to resolve this situation? So I'm going to try to think about maybe relationships that I have, like maybe you know, in the Medicare setting, like should I contact my upline to figure out how to resolve this situation? What can I do to truly resolve this situation?
Yeah, and I think that there's when you're dealing with these issues, I think there's always a lesson that can be learned from that. And if you're newer to the business and maybe this is something that's keeping you from kind of getting out there and getting in front of people, I would recommend that the best way, I know that for me personally, the way that I learned and was able to just get better at doing what I did was by actually taking situations like this head on and figuring out what the solution is. And so there were times where maybe it was a call to my upline, or there were times if I had the conversation with my upline saying, hey, look, you may have to get a 3-way call into customer service, or right. Maybe you can nowadays you can actually call into customer service on behalf of the members. That wasn't really a thing when I first got into the business, which is great. But the other takeaway from this is there's something to be learned, and you got to make sure that you're taking the lesson from this, because in the future, if you run into a situation like this, you know how to resolve it. Right. And so you may have worked a little harder the first time around to resolve it, but the next time around that it happens, you're going to have the answer.
Yeah, I would say, like, one of the hard parts about this, and also one of the easier parts about this, is that usually it wasn't like in our business, in Medicare, like, it's usually not your error. Now, sometimes it is your error, and but it's usually not. It's usually the carrier or provider group, you know, handled things in the wrong way, and it's your job. Again, you listen, figure figure out what it is and then help them to resolve that issue. Like think about, okay, well, this is who I'm going to probably end up having to have them call or do a 3-way call with, because usually, again, it's not your fault. So you can kind of look at it in that way as like I understand you're upset. It's not at me, and you don't have to tell them that, but in your own head when you're dealing with this and you're kind of catching some attitude from that individual, like I know that this wasn't my fault. I wasn't, I'm not the one that made this error that puts you in this situation. And really kind of while you're doing that, just never forget that. Don't lose sight of that.
Right. Yeah, they're not mad at you personally. So make sure that as the agent, you're not taking it personally.
Right. There's a person that many years ago, I'd given them this lead, and it was from a carrier, and they were supposed to be at their house at like 10 o'clock on such and such day. And apparently they didn't see that the lead was assigned to them until like 2 p.m. And it was because the guy called the carrier and he was angry that he didn't show up. And so I called the agent, and his response was like, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." So he called the customer. He was like, "Listen, I just want you to know, first of all, I'm very, very sorry, but I need your help here because, I mean, to be honest, like the email just never came through, and if you just allow me, I'll just stop what I'm doing and I'll come over there right now and just to resolve this for you. And I'm just so sorry that it happened." And he was able to kind of turn that around. But one thing that I liked is like, man, if you could just help me out here. And some people respond well to that, others not so much. But that's what he did. I think it's a great way. Like I listen, I care. Now let's without saying it, like let's move on to how we resolve this instead of like dwelling on the fact that you're mad.
Right.
Let me just get this fixed for you. Let's move on. Let me just get this fixed for you. So I think that could go a really long way. And I'll talk about in our business, we've seen where agents can make a mistake. And so sometimes it is your mistake. Sometimes it was something that you did. I've just even reminded recently, there is an agent who was going through an application for a carrier. And you know how like nowadays these carriers, especially this particular one, they have like 8 or 9 different plans, plan options. And so the way that what happened was the agent selected the wrong plan. And so it was maybe a week after the plan went into effect, they found out that she selected the wrong plan. And the agent was pretty upset about it. They're like, "Man, I'm so sorry." The customer was angry. They're like, "This is not what I was looking for." And so ultimately they called me, and so it's interesting because some carriers and I'll give like Humana, if you make a mistake on their application, it's super easy. All you have to do is send an inquiry and let them know, "I made a mistake on the application. I selected this and I should have selected this." And you move on from that, and they'll backdate it and fix it. That's Humana.
Yeah.
Not all carriers are equal. So this other carrier just said, "Sorry, it's already in effect. You selected the wrong one, so they need to just enroll at the next available enrollment period."
That's kind of what made things worse, is there was no upcoming SEP, special enrollment period. So this person was essentially going to have to wait
for a year
until AEP. Yeah.
And so, what we came up with is we tried to escalate it. So she contacted her upline. I contacted our upline, who then also went straight to the carrier and tried to get this thing resolved. And basically everybody at this carrier was just like, "Sorry, like nothing we can do. Yeah. Too bad." And it's a frustrating thing. And ultimately, I had one other thing that I've seen work in situations like this, where ultimately we told the customer to go ahead and call in and make a complaint against this agent and say, "Hey, look, I told this agent that I wanted this plan, and they signed me up on a different plan than the one that I wanted." The customer didn't want to do it. They're like, "I don't want to get this agent in trouble." Realistically, what happens to an agent in that situation? Like, just respond, "Yes, I made a mistake, and I tried to tell you guys about it, and you didn't fix it. Like, what can I do?" And then you move on from there. And it really, what it comes down to is, again, doing the right thing, right? In that situation, the right thing to do was to kind of give her instructions. Look, I made a mistake, and it's got to go up the channel because that's the only way they're going to fix it.
This is how we can fix it.
Yeah, and a couple days later, it was resolved. And what happened to the agent? Nothing. You know,
Everything
it's just
is okay.
You know, I think it's important to remind agents that what CMS is looking for is bad apples. Like, people are going to make mistakes, and that's just part. We're human. We're not computers. We're human, and we're not robots, I should say. We're going to make mistakes, and it's about doing the right thing. What they're looking for, what CMS typically is looking for, is people who are bad apples that are doing bad things and trying to intentionally putting them on the different plan so they can get paid or something like that. They're not looking for agents who just simply made a mistake on the application. So kind of keep that in mind when you're going through it. As far as as far as dealing with this, like, just keep in mind, we're in a time now where seniors are doing more and more reviews on companies. But what I oftentimes, and the reason that you see such a big push for people getting reviews is because a lot of times people only go to give a review if it's something bad. So you've got to have your good reviews in there, because of that. Yeah, because they've got to be able to help with when you have somebody, if you make a mistake, is to go on there and sometimes just keep in mind that they may make a complaint against you on the reviews, and it's important the way that you handle it, so you can even put on there without giving there too many details, like, man, I'm so sorry that this happened. As we said on the phone, I do everything I can to resolve this issue for you, and unfortunately I wasn't able to, or whatever the situation. I think it's an important thing also, just kind of a side note, it's not what this is about, but if you're responding to reviews, to do it in a way that when people read it, they're like, oh, that's a company that I would work with. I've seen people who are like, as I told you when you were here, and they're kind of like, as I said before, and that's definitely not the way.
Kind of have like a combative response to whatever that review may be. That's may not look good, because if I'm a senior and I'm shopping and I'm reading these negative reviews, because me personally, whenever I'm doing my research on a particular product or company, I don't go to the high reviews. I go and look at the negative reviews first, and I want to see what those reviews look like. Like, I think I was shopping there was a little basketball that I wanted to buy for my son on Amazon, and so I found one, and I thought, this looks like a good ball, and so I went and looked at all the negative reviews, and all the negative reviews said, well, the ball didn't come inflated. The ball didn't come inflated. I'm like, like those are the worst reviews that this product is. Yeah, just like that. And so I was like, okay, so I went ahead and moved forward with it. But again, if I'm looking for a particular service and I see these negative reviews, and then I see the agency responding, or the agent, if they're reviewing the agent, responding with something that's kind of argumentative back to that individual, I might think twice about going with, choosing this particular company or individual for the services that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I would watch how you respond. You want to make sure that that you're perceived the way that you would like to be, because you're in full control of that. The way that you respond is full control. I remember we were talking with a friend of ours. I don't know if you remember this, but she had posted, guys, she was like, you got to see the owner's response of this daycare to reviews. He does not like them. And they're like, we're reading them and just like, we're cracking up at the responses. Like, they're just so like unprofessional. So like, that's why we didn't want your service anyway, and this and that. And she's like, obviously I'm not going to use this company. Right. So I think it's an important thing to respond in the right way. And just ultimately, like with all of this, the way that you respond when people are upset, they're going to remember. They're going to remember more than when they signed you up and you were super, super nice. They're going to, obviously you're pleasant. This is just like a job interview, right? Like, everyone's on their best behavior, and everyone's going to tell you that they're the hardest worker in the world on the interview. And really, that kind of first appointment, that's kind of your interview, right? And where you really shine is how I respond when there's a major issue.
Right.
Yeah.
So just make sure that you're responding in a positive way, and that you always have a positive attitude. And again, I've been on the receiving end. We've been on the receiving end where we get phone calls like that, but you've got to keep in mind, you've got to have that high EQ, right? And just act in a manner to where once this blows over, they still want to continue to do business with you, and they're still going to continue to refer business to you. Not only for those reasons though, but because that's who we want to be as individuals, like you said.
Yeah, use it as an opportunity. Use it as, look, I'm gonna show them how great of an agent. This is my time to shine. I'm gonna show them how great of an agent. I said I was gonna be a good agent to them. Let's show them. Yeah. And so use that as an opportunity, and I think you're gonna find that you can move past these complaints into actually getting some referrals from them. So just kind of wanted to go back and is there any kind of takeaways that you have? Obviously it's a shorter podcast because there's not much to it, but is there anything that any takeaways that you would want to retouch on?
A couple things that I want to, like some points that I'd like to add is, earlier I mentioned, right, taking a lesson from everything, but there are ways to prevent some complaints to come in as well. And so I'll give you an easy example, right? If you're enrolling somebody during AEP and they're making a plan change from one carrier to another, I would remind them that when the new year comes, when January rolls around and you go to fill your prescriptions, make sure that you've called the pharmacy and that you've updated them with your new insurance information. I know that sounds like a very simple task and thing to do, but let me tell you, the reason that I share that information with my clients is because I've gotten phone calls on January 3rd from a client saying, I just went to fill up my medications and the pharmacy's telling me that my insurance is canceled. What happened with the insurance that you signed me up on? And then I have to say, Mrs. Jane Doe, make sure, do they have your updated insurance information? And so they call the pharmacy back and the pharmacy says, oh no, we still have you on the old insurance company. And so that employee may be quick to just say, oh, we just ran the information for Jane Doe. Looks like her insurance is expired. Let me call her and let her know I can't fill her medications because her insurance is expired. And so that employee could have gone a step further and said, hey, are there any new changes to your insurance? Can I get your updated information? But they didn't. And we can't, as agents, we can't expect that. And so the way that we can prevent that is just by simply coaching our clients and saying, hey, look, when the new year comes, your pharmacy might tell you that your insurance is canceled or it's expired. Just let them know that you have the new insurance information that you want to update with them. And I think the fact that I just coached them and kind of prepared them for that moment put them at ease so that when that situation does come around at the beginning of January, they're prepared for it. And so they've already got the answer and solution rather than them getting on the phone, calling you upset about the fact that their insurance is not active.
Yeah, I think another one that we could do to kind of avoid, complaints or frustrations is also, let's just say that you're enrolling someone at the end of the month. It's the 25th, and they're enrolling into an HMO plan from another HMO plan, and then you find out that they actually have a surgery or a procedure pending for like the 5th of the month. You don't move forward with that. And what I would recommend is tell them, hey, look, because of the fact that we're changing carriers, we could look into it, but what might be the wise thing to do is why don't we just wait till the next month after this procedure is over, and then we can go ahead and make that change. It's the best way to kind of avoid a complaint in that situation. When obviously, like when we're all first starting out, that's something that can really happen where, we don't realize that there's a ripple effect when you change someone's insurance, and you just want to get in front of that. So a lot of times I would say, like, if it's near the end of the month, let's wait until that next month, assuming that the enrollment period will still be available. That would probably keep you from getting a complaint as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing that I might add is the follow-up after you've resolved the issue. So following up and just checking in. Hey, Mrs. Jane Doe, did everything kind of get settled? Are you good? Is everything fine? And that just shows that you care as the agent and you want to make sure that they got their problem taken care of. I've been in conversations with agents where I say, hey, so what ended up happening with that situation? It's like, well, I never heard back, so I guess everything's okay. And I'm like, that's a missed opportunity. The way that I think about it is because as an agent, I mean, everything probably did turn out fine because you never heard back from them. But what I might do just to stand out from other agents, you know, competition, is I'm going to call her and say, hey, is everything okay? Did everything work out? Is everything in a good place? And just kind of take the time to have a conversation and say, look, these are the things that I'm able to do for you. I'm sorry that this happened, but also it's my job to help you get through these situations. So if anything like this happens or anything at all happens in the future, I want you to know that I want to be your first phone call, and I want to be the person that's going to help you get through these issues. Even if I can't personally handle it for you, I'm going to help you get through it. And that means so much more. As an agent, we can kind of just, sometimes I feel like we can become numb to all of these services that we provide to them. But when we help somebody get through a situation like this, it means a lot more to them than it might mean to us. And so that can lead to a lot of good. One, it's just a good thing that we're doing for them as an agent and as an individual, as a person. But also, they're going to remember you, and they're going to say, you know what, you've got to call Oscar. He helped me get through these situations. And sometimes agents wonder, you know, where are my referrals? What's happening? Why I feel like I'm doing everything right. But just taking it one step further and taking small actions like this will really lead to a lot more opportunity and referrals down the road.
Yeah. One other thing I was thinking is like, asking the questions like, are you using any of the ongoing services that, you know, like the emergency response system, the what is it?
The life alert.
Life alert. Yeah. That are you using that? If you are, let's go ahead and obviously this company has it as well, and you know, try to help them get in front of some of those things. It can kind of eliminate like, hey, I just found out that I'm not able to have my life alert anymore. And like, man, let's have conversations with people when you're enrolling them about what they're on. You know, like what and what they're taking advantage of within that carrier, just to make sure that you don't run into that sort of thing. So, any other thoughts on that?
No, I think I got them out.
Yeah, awesome. All right, guys. Well, we do this on a weekly basis. Our goal is to help agents to be successful, to be able to kind of get to that next level. There's a hump that especially for new agents that most are trying to get over of being very successful. And so our goal here is to help agents to accomplish and get over that hump. So until next time, go out there and really be the best agent that you can be out there.